Ich darf alle ganz herzlich begrüßen hier zu einem weiteren Chief CX Talk am Donnerstagnachmittag. Heute mit einem internationalen Gast, deswegen wechseln wir jetzt auch gleich ins Englische. Again, in English, I'd like to welcome everybody who is following us this afternoon for another Chief CX talk on a Thursday afternoon. My name is Björn Egemann. I'm part of Congress Media, and we are a traditional conference organizer organizing the running the Chief CX conference in Germany, which is coming up next week as a full conference week of talks and practice talks and a lot of discussions, but we also had already some discussions because in the times of our virtual formats now, we had, extended or split up our conference into pre-conference discussion panels we had already during the last 10 weeks. And this conference week next week, where we have all these talks running and also discussion panels in the afternoon. Accompanying to our classical conference business, we are doing these weekly talks with our Chief CX. We have the pleasure to moderate and to welcome here in our weekly stream format guests that are coming from the CX background, are CX experts, evangelists, and where I have the chance to talk with them about their topics and their views on the developments in this field. And this afternoon, I'm very happy to have with me as an international guest, Tue Soettrup. Hello, Tue.
Hello, Björn. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting.
You're coming into the stream from Copenhagen. You're part of Dixa. You're the CX evangelist of Dixa. And as far as I understood, Dixa is an Omnichannel Customer Service platform. That's also our topic that we are going to talk this afternoon about. So what is the future of the customer service? But first of all, a personal question: how are you so far in the lockdowns? How's the lockdown in Denmark?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm in the office today. We allow up to 20 people in our office, and I think that Denmark will open up more and more. So I hope that I will see a lot more of my colleagues in the coming weeks.
So how long have you been in the lockdown so far?
And how was it? Since the second wave hit us right after Christmas, so the beginning of the year, I didn't go to the office for the first two couple of months, and it's only the last couple of weeks that I'm coming in a couple of days. I think from our point of view, we have a lot of different nationalities that are working from different locations around the world. So for us, it was quite easy to adjust to work in a remote setting, and it hasn't had a big impact or disruption on our work.
Okay, great stuff. And the business is also developing because you're certainly probably one of the gainers of these situations.
Yeah, definitely. You could see that what most of the thought leaders out there are saying, that we have seen an increase in the digitalization among different customers and brands, and they have sped up that development with something like 5 years. And that's of course something that has been fortunate for us. We have a cloud-based contact center solution supporting phone, chat, social media, email in one solution, and a lot of brands have been struggling because they had on-premise equipment and they couldn't go to the office, so they needed to find a way where they could work from different locations. So in that sense, it was of course positive for us, but there is also a backside to not being able to see your colleagues and build the kind of relationships that you need to improve your business, especially when you're growing at the rate that we are.
That's true. That's all. So we cannot digitalize everything in this world, certainly, but a lot of things at least. So Yeah, you already introduced a little bit about Dixa. So it's a full stack digital customer service platform, from not only for digital contact management and customer service management, but also for phone calls and call center agents. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
So it's an integrated customer contact center.
Yeah, and I would say much of what we do is also help our customers to become successful with the tool. So understanding how they want to meet their customers, and then we help design the best possible experiences on the different channels. And like you said, that is on phone call. Do you want to have a timeout and offer a callback? What kind of announcements and routing do you want? We do the same for chat. We do the same for email. Just understanding what the customers want, and in many cases, forcing them to forget about what they're doing today and instead think about what they want to do tomorrow, and then help design those experiences.
You mentioned already forgetting about what they're doing today. I mean, that's one big issue we already discussed in another discussion panel we had here in the upfront of the Chief CX conference. We had one session with some German expert in the field of customer contact centers, and certainly they said there are a lot of traditional legacy systems out there in the company that are hindering at the moment very much the process of going all the way into this digital customer service approach. Would you agree on this?
Yeah, definitely. It's also what we see in the market, that a lot of companies, they have one old phone system, then they have another solution for email. If they have chat, that's often in a third system. And that means that the agents have to jump between the different systems. Besides that, it's also very difficult to aggregate data. So get a complete overview of the interactions across those channels. And lastly, it's difficult for the agents to see that a customer that is calling also send an email, because that's not linked to the same system as they're using for phone. And that, of course, gives a bad customer experience.
This also implies that certainly we at least have to step a step back, and as you said, forget about the things we are, as we did it at the moment, and also forget about all the technological investments we did in the past and jump onto another systems. Are the companies ready for this?
Yes, and they have been forced to do it faster than they probably would have liked to. Usually they want to do it at their own pace, but the situation that has been going on for the last year have meant that they needed to do it faster. And of course, most organizations have something that's working, and it's always risk-filled when you are replacing business-critical software. Having a phone system and chat and email, that is how your customers get in contact with you. And it's kind of like replacing the engine of your car while you're driving. And most people don't want to do that because they are up and running. And even though there might be a system out there that's better for them, then it can be painful to do it.
Mm-hmm. So how do we solve this this challenge? What are your recommendations on how to jump into this? Just forgetting about it, about the way we're doing it, it's very it seems easier than probably it is at the end.
I think that when you look at all the different cloud-based solutions that are out there, then they offer some possibilities that existing systems don't. Some of that is integrations to other systems, where you can recognize who's calling you. You can recognize what was their last order, how much money have they spent. Having that kind of information shown to the agents is a benefit that you get out of it. What is important to remember here is that for customers, they just want it to be as effortless as possible. So when they call somebody, they want the brand to know who they are. They want the brand to know what other channels you have contacted them before. They also want you to know what is your favorite item that you're buying from them. Have that information at your fingertips so you can deliver a faster and more personal experience. And to do that, then you need to look at other solution than what you have used to do before. And when you know that these systems are out there, they can do other things, then you can look at how you can design that experience in a better way.
So yes, the expectations of the customer is clear. They want a more easier way, but are they pushing for it enough onto the companies that the companies are changing their approaches?
Yes, definitely. What we can see that the last year where we've had COVID-19 has a big effect on us. I see that a lot of brands had upped their game. They are delivering a much better and more consistent service across the different channels, where they would maybe argue with customers about a return or a refund. Now they're just doing it. Customers are in a position where they can just change from one provider to another very, very easy, and they do that. And also they feel that if something is inconvenient, they don't want to waste their time on it. Like, time is the most important thing. In many cases, it is more important than money. So customers, they have a tendency to pay more to get a better service.
Mm-hmm. So also in this discussion we had 2 weeks ago, we discussed first of all this technology heritage where the companies are in, and that is hindering, but then also the problems on the management side, that the management is not yet aware of the urgency to change in this field. Are you also seeing this, or are you just having those companies who are already very much urged and are open to discuss this to go another way with Dixa?
I would say that all companies are actually interested in doing this. And one of the key drivers is actually that when you have these old legacy systems, they are very often owned and maintained by the company's IT department. And looking at cloud-based solutions, including Dixa, then that responsibility lies with the contact center manager. So suddenly IT has no stake in the game anymore. They don't need to maintain it. If there's anything that's not working, then the contact center manager would contact Dixa or their provider. And so in many cases, the IT department are the ones that says immediately, where do we need to sign? Like, they want to get rid of that responsibility because they have so much other stuff they want to do, often in running their business. And being in charge of a phone system is not one of the things that they want to spend their time on. And so in a sense, you could say that's something that the businesses outsource, and you move the control of how the customer journey experience is away from IT into the contact center manager's hands, and they can make changes on the fly. So if they experience a certain number of conversations about a specific topic that can be a delayed delivery, they can immediately go in and record an announcement directly in the tool, so the callers will have a response and get an answer to the question before they even speak to an agent. So there are so many things that brands can do now that they can't do with the old technology that they used to use.
But to have this full view into the customer, I also need a very seamless and deep integration of your system with my process systems to have the full information about where my customer stands at the moment. So there it comes that always also the IT people are also a little bit anxious about how services are fitting together with the legacy, with the other legacy systems at that point. How do you overcome this challenge?
When we started Dixa, we looked at how we could solve that issue, and we were a bit naive in thinking that we could make integrations to all solutions out there, so the customers could just plug in whatever they're using, and that would require us to get access to their system, because what we realized was that most of them were using their own bespoke systems that they had built themselves. So what we did instead was create an infrastructure where, when you receive a phone call, an email, or a chat, then we can send a request to your own system, including the email address or the phone number. And then the only thing that the IT department needs to do is to set up a service that can return the data that you want the agents to see within the product. That can be how much money they spend, the last order. It can include links to your systems. So it's a very simple integration that can be set up in a very short while. And also, if you have systems that are very old and don't have API endpoints and are behind a firewall, then you can export data to a web service so you can query that endpoint instead and make that data operational. And it's also very important for us in these GDPR times that data stays in your own systems. So we are not syncing it into our platform. We can use it to route conversations to the right agents in the right queues, and we can also use it to show the right information to the agents. But as soon as the conversation is closed in the platform, that data is gone. So you retain the data in your own system, which is really important.
Yeah. That's what I've also seen when I read about Dixa and the characteristics of your solution approach, and that's why I asked. I mean, that's the key point. Is that if we're moving with our omni-channel approach to cloud systems, then we need this integration, but we need a lightweight integration to really make this work at the end. And I mean, this is probably also the problem or the issue of a lot of projects where they are turning to cloud-based integrate or cloud-based solutions that are not using this lightweight integration, but are calling out for a very deep integration. And then it gets again this big IT integration project, which is never ending, isn't this?
Exactly. And to just give a hands-on example for how you can leverage the data that you have, if you, for instance, have a Shopify account and you're running your business through Shopify, then you can set up a very simple integration where you query your Shopify account with an API token. Then when there's a match on the phone number or email address, you can check A, the number of orders the customer has placed, and B, how much money the customer has spent. And then you can use that to add a tag to the conversation saying this is the first order, and putting it to the welcome queue if they have only placed one order, because you know that if it's the first time they place an order and they contact you, you want to provide a really good experience because that increases the chance of repurchases. If it's a customer that has spent a lot of money with you, you might want to add a VIP tag and put it into the VIP queue. So that is something that you can set up in less than 5 minutes, and then you can leverage data that is in your Shopify account to have the conversations go to the right queues in the right order. So back to your point, it doesn't have to be a very large IT project to do it. And in that sense, you can just leverage the data that is in your backend system and make it actionable within the platform and data available to the agents in the matter of minutes.
So now that we've talked about you and Dixa, we very much talked about the efficient, the efficient customer service processes. If we talk about CX, customer experience, we always emphasize this experience moment on the customer side. So, but we talk now a lot about the efficient process for the company. So where's the CX in this for the customer?
Yeah, as I said previously, the customer wants to have an effortless experience when they engage with a brand. And that can be on many levels. When I go to a company's website, I want to be able to find the answer myself. If I don't find the answer, I want to have an easy way to talk to a person. Sometimes I don't need to talk to a person. You can have a chatbot or an assistant that can help you find the answers that you need, but you always need to have a backdoor. So if that information doesn't help you, then there is somebody that you can talk to and you want to have an answer immediately. So if you offer chat on your website, I expect there to be somebody on the other end. We always hate going to a website and the chat box pops up and say, hi, how can I help you? And then you say, I need help with this issue. And then it says, we're not here right now. Put in your email address. We will get back to you when we feel like it. Then I've actually wasted my time. So it's a lot about adjusting the customer's expectation. So if you offer a chat, be there, because I expect you to be, especially if you ping me and say, how can I help you? Then you need to be there. If you send an email, then send an auto reply to the customer and tell them how long they can expect to get a response. And if they call you up, then decide how long do you want a customer to wait. And if they wait longer than that time, then give them the offer to get a callback instead. So they don't have to wait in line for a long time. Nobody likes to do that. So look at it from the customer's perspective. What would you like when you engage with a brand, and how can you design the flow from that point of view?
So is everything becoming conversation at the end in the field of customer service?
Yes, I think so. And I think a lot of it has to do with getting this 360 degrees views of the customer, knowing who they spoke to before on all the different channels. Who are they? What order did they place? How much money have they spent? And then also having the right information at the agent's fingertips. So when they get a question, then there has to be some kind of knowledge that can help them. That can be something that is fetched directly from the content of the email. It can be based on the tag that is applied when they go through different flows in the product, but having the right information surfaced to the agent, because something that is really important to customers is that they get the same consistent experience across all the different channels when they reach out. They want to get the same response. And also from the agent side, they feel more empowered if they know they are giving the right response when they get a question. So having knowledge at the agent's fingertips so they can do that. And if they get a question that there is no support article for, then the agent should also be able to create a draft article that can then very quickly be available to all the agents that are working in the product, and even be published so customers can find the answer. The faster you can have that process changed, so the customers can find the answer themselves when they want to, the more time you save in the long run and the better experience you provide.
This also calls out for a very much integrated omni-channel approach, at least on the customer service side. What we have seen also in our conferences during the last year, certainly there were a lot of movements of companies who are having their traditional customer service processes, maybe already with some digital contact center, self-service center. And then now with Corona, they moved into this conversational with some separate chatbot approaches. This is not yet working together in a one holistic way from the customer viewpoint. I mean, this is a big challenge now for a lot of companies, isn't it, for the next year to solve this?
Yeah, definitely. A really important point. I think a lot of brands, they got forced into focusing more on deflection because the agents couldn't go to the office. They needed to be able to help their customers with what was possible. So they focused on having self-service and different chatbots. Chatbots can help to a certain degree, but you need to be very much aware of where you offer it, because in many situations, customers will ask questions where they're not getting a response. And again, about adjusting the customer's expectations. If they spend time talking to a chatbot and the chatbot can't help them, then they have actually wasted their times. Then they will be reluctant to use that brand again because they ended up having a bad experience. So it's very much about, again, designing that experience. In some use cases, it makes a lot of sense to have a chatbot, especially if you can integrate it to your backend system. So if I have a question about a delivery, then I could fetch delivery status directly from the backend system and surface it to the customer directly in the chat. That could include a tracking link, a map, whatever information that could be provided there. In those cases, as long as you are answering like 95% at least of those kind of questions, you are providing a good experience and you can automate some of the processes. And that is actually both beneficial to the customer and also for the organization. But back to your point, I think we are also maybe 2-3 years away from having the technology that can deliver a consistent good service when it comes to chatbots. We've all experienced these chatbot crashes, and it's never a good experience.
So you say it still takes us 2 to 3 years to really find the right way in this consistent omni-channel approach.
Yes, I think so, especially if we're looking at having a chatbot responding directly to customers. Our focus is much more on having human-assisted support, so using the really good parts of machine learning and AI to make suggestions to agents that they can customize before they send it out, using that technology to come with suggestions for articles to the agents and do that, but it has to go through a human before it is sent to a customer. And another way that you can utilize
this is always this mix of technology and human agent. I mean, isn't this always the best and also the future way of how to do customer service? I mean, I wouldn't agree on if you would say that the future of customer service is only the automatic technological machine way. I think it's always a mix of it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's also where we have seen it work the best. So you can have a bot or a conversational assistant that is collecting information from the customer, passing it over to a human that then responds to the customer. And sometimes the human can pass it back to a bot to collect some information. So switching back and forth between a bot where it works and a human where you need a human. But I think looking into the future, then more and more of these processes would be able to be handled in an efficient way by a bot. So what is required of the human will be less and less. The flip side of this is that the things that are left for the humans are the ones that are much more complicated and more time consuming. So you will see average handling time go up because the complexity of the issues that lands on the human's desk will be much more complicated than what we see before. If you look at having a help center where you have a lot of deflection articles where the customers can find responses, we've seen with some customers that can reduce the number of incoming conversations with 20%. But that means that the ones that are actually going through are much more complicated and require more knowledge from the agents to solve them.
So what are your actionable recommendations? So how should we go forward as a company representative or practitioner who is in charge for solving this challenge in the field of digital customer service? So we are still having our call center agents, and we somehow solved this during Corona times to make them work, but we also introduced some chatbots, some separate chatbots. How can we bring this to an end? I mean, certainly your one advice would be forget about the past and come to us, and then everything is solved. But that's probably never. There's never this only one easy way to go there, isn't it?
No, there are many different ways. I think the first step is to understand the customers. What is it that they want to achieve? What channels do they want to reach out on and be on those channels? What are their expectations for getting a response? And what are their expectations for issues that they can resolve themselves? So looking into why are our customers contacting us? Finding out if there are support articles that you're missing that could allow them to help themselves. And it's very much about making sure that your customers contact you about the right things, because we actually all want to talk to our customers because that's how we build relationships, but we don't want to make it inconvenient for the customer. So if they can find the response themselves, then they should be able to do that. So the first part is tracking what the conversations are about and ensuring that the right support articles can help them either through a chatbot or on the website. And when they need to reach out, then be on the channels where they need help. So if it's a younger generation, then they will probably be on Instagram. And then as a brand that are communicating to that segment, you need to be on that channel to be able to help them. If they are in Southern Europe or in South America, they will reach out on WhatsApp because that's their channel of preference, then be on that channel. So listen to your customers, understand what they expect of you, and be there. And as always, walk in your customer's shoes, try to take their journey, reach out to your brand and see how that journey is from your point of view, to see if you can identify any ways where you can remove friction and improve the experience.
Great. So we're having a lot of talks about, especially in our in regards to our conference, about the importance of customer experience. What we have seen that certainly with Corona, customer experience, or the topic of CX has very much emerged and it advanced. Are you also experiencing this?
Yeah, definitely. We see customer experience, it becomes a core competency as part of a shape-shifting organization. They need to adapt to the world around them. And since it's so easy for customers to move from brand to brand, you need to focus a lot on the customer experience. We also see that in many organizations, customer experience becomes accountable for top line and margin expansions. It is the core of the business. It's how you differentiate. Also, if you look at the very successful businesses, they are the brands that have a very tight focus on delivering exceptional services every time that they engage with their customers across all the different channels. So be on those channels and don't try all the time to overcome the customer's expectations. It's much better to consistently meet them across every single interaction that you have with them.
You talked about the accountability. Also, we have also had this discussion in another discussion round for our conference, where we said that unfortunately the accountability for CX or the CX objectives are not yet really part of the top management objectives in general. What do you think about this? This point is a very big challenge and issue for the projects.
Yes, it is so true, and it's something that I see myself all the time, and I also hear from customers. And I think the biggest challenge is finding a method for calculating the return of investment of CX. And when you have a model where you can actually prove the value of focusing on the customer experience, then it's much easier to get buy-in from upper management. We do see CX and CXO being much more a part of leadership of modern organizations. I think the CX role will expand significantly within the next 5 years, because it is a way to differentiate. And you need, as an organization, to have a strategy for how you meet your customers. You also need to understand that employee experience is very important, because happy employees deliver a better experience. So they also go hand in hand, and you need to have that foundational work laid first. So focus on your employees, give them the right tools, give them the right knowledge, the right training, the right attitude, the right culture, and then ensure that they deliver on your brand promise. So when customers contact you, they feel that you speak, act like the vision that your company has. So they feel at home and they feel listened to and respected.
In many discussions we had, we also discussed that certainly with Corona and the lockdown and the call out for empathy from the customer side, and certainly also the advanced use of digital channels and so on, it certainly brings up this urgency for a better customer experience mindset within the organizations. But yet still it's only the awareness for this is only at these levels where CX managers have a specific role for it, or maybe also in departments, and it's not yet as you said also before, it's not yet a company-wide mindset that the company is acting by neither from the top management nor also from the organizations, from the other parts of the organization. So how can we change this? How can we, as CX managers, as being in charge for customer experience and having the role and also the accountability for it, we also take our organization and also our management with us. I think most of the times we always talk about the buy-in with some showing up the business case and so on. But I think most of the times the buy-in is not yet enough, because it's maybe it's the argument for the rational decision on why we're doing, but it's not yet the full notion and the full understanding of the idea behind it, which is still missing within the organization and the management. So what are your recommendations on how to act into our organization to change this mindset?
It's a really good question, and you are completely right. I think one of the biggest challenges, if you are an organization where you don't have the buy-in from management, how do you convince the CEO to invest in CX when they don't see the value of it? And I think the only thing that you can do as a CX leader in that position is to prove the return on investment on CX. So find some smaller projects where you create a business case and say, by doing A, we expect B, so C. Having a model, a framework where you can actually prove that you get more value out of the time that you invest in it. That can be something as small as, if we change this thing in the customer journey, then we see an increase in the purchase of 1%. That can turn into a lot of money. So finding these frameworks for how you can document the value of it. So if you go up to upper management and you do a presentation where, by doing this thing now, we expect to get this benefit out of it, then it's really difficult for somebody to say, we don't want to do that. And if you've done that a couple of times, then you have enough back history to prove that what you are doing is bringing value to the company. And that will get you, if not a seat at the table, then enough time to get the buy-in from the stakeholders that need to understand the importance of it. And then it is a process before the management team actually realizes that they need to change the way that they run their organization. They need to focus on this part of the customer journey as well. But to do it, you need to be able to prove the value that you're providing to the company.
Great answer. So you're also involved in a lot of discussion of this international CX community. So what is coming up within the next months? So we are only focusing on the German CX community, and certainly have our Chief CX coming up for us. But what are your recommendations on the international side? There are a lot of clubhouse talks and discussions going on at the moment. So this is certainly one hint.
Yes, definitely. Hint? Yeah, there are different conferences that are coming up. I think that to a certain degree, most of us have some kind of online conference fatigue, because we spend a lot of time in Zoom meetings. And then we are also going to virtual conferences to get insights into what happens in the CX world. And we get so much more out of meeting people in person, that I think we're really missing that aspect where you are not just in a conference about a different topic, but you actually meet people and talk about something that is outside that topic. And a way that you can do that is actually on Clubhouse, as you mentioned, because there is a lot of CX talks. There's a lot of good CX leaders that are engaged in the community there. And there you very often get into talks that go off track. So you might set up a room about a specific topic, but halfway through the meeting, then it diverges into a completely different track, but also a very valuable discussion. And what I think is that Clubhouse allows you to connect with people from all around the world in a very, very easy way, which you couldn't do before. Even if you went to a conference in Germany, you would only meet people that went to that conference from maybe around the world, but you'll still be limited to the people that are there. Like it kind of breaks down a lot of barriers. So finding CX rooms and clubs and different people that you can connect with on Clubhouse is a really good place to start, because you can also get access to a lot of the thought leaders that have written books about NPS, that are doing talks and keynotes and getting insights into how they view different things. It's much easier to actually engage with people on Clubhouse than it is even going to a conference. If you are in a room and there is 400 or 500 participants and there's somebody on stage, it's really difficult to ask them a question. That rarely happens. But in Clubhouse, you can just raise your hand, you can be pulled on stage, you can ask them a question, and then you can go back into the audience. So in that sense, it's also much easier to engage. So if you are interested in this field, I do recommend spending some time on Clubhouse, because you can get a lot of really good perspectives on different topics.
And in regards to international CX conferences, what are your recommendations there? I mean, at the moment, only virtual. So.
Yeah, and then I hope that later this year we will be able to go to some conferences in person. But otherwise, look at the different topics, look at the different speakers that you follow when they are doing different conferences. There are still a lot of good CX conferences out there, and I think that spending a day listening to 6-7 different people that talk about topics they love gives you a lot of insight that you can take back to your organization. And if it's just 2-3 items that you take home with you, it's still a lot of value, and you also get inspired. And then it is also good to take a break from your daily operations and listen to somebody else and get a different perspective on stuff.
That's true. That's also what we're up to next week, and also looking forward to it. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Tue, for your time you spent with me this afternoon. We're already at the end, and it was very insightful in regards of the future of customer service and your thoughts on that, and also on the thoughts on how the CX idea is evolving. So thank you for this. And yes, we are at the end of our Shift CX talk this Thursday afternoon. And yeah, I'm happy to point you out again for our Shift CX 21 that is coming up next week. Look at our website at shiftcx.de. We have a nice agenda for next week with different topics, from how to change the CX organization and mindset towards the conversational approach, also the digital experience and digital commerce approach, and also on the topic of marketing automation as well as smarter customer service. So these are our key topics for the 5 days we're having next week. Happy to meet you in our virtual conference setup with hopefully also a lot of engagement. And see you then, and if not then, we see each other maybe back at our next Shift CX talk, which is coming in 14 days. So we are pausing certainly next week for our Shift CX conference, and coming up in, I think it's going to be the 2nd of April. It's the next talk that is coming up. Thank you for this moment. Tue, please stay with me, but we are leaving the stream. See you then. Bye-bye.